Hey Study Nerds fam, Andrew here. Today we're going to talk about my top 5 favorite resources for the GRE. Nobody's favorite thing. So let's get started. Starting it off is my number 5 favorite resource. That would be the Galvanize test prep or YouTube. I actually use them more on YouTube. I didn't pay for any of their resources. I felt like YouTube was enough for me. They had some good tips and tricks for like the writing section, the verbal section. I didn't particularly use them for studying for the math section. It was more for verbal like tips and tricks and the writing tips and tricks. So I felt like they had a lot of useful information to provide, but sometimes they can be hard to understand. A lot of the instructors that are on the videos there do have a bit of an accent. So if you're not good with accents, sometimes that can be really difficult to process. And when you're trying to learn information, especially like as a refresher or for the first time, for some of you who didn't maybe take algebra, geometry, whatever it may be, accents can sometimes get in the way of your learning. So I understand that. For me, it wasn't a problem. But I have my phone brought up so that way you can see what it looks like. This is their website. Their YouTube's a little different, but it always has their logo on there. So I would just go on YouTube, search Galvanize, and type GRE as well. Their videos can be a little long, but they're worth sitting through, I believe. Now, my number 4 resource would be the Manhattan Prep book. That one's like a 5-pound book of practice problems. I use that more for like math, like relearning those basics of algebra, geometry. I didn't really use the verbal or the writing portion of this practice book, but I felt like it did help me remember and learn those basics of math a little bit quicker. There's so many practice problems. I actually have the book here. It's huge and heavy. Bam. It is ginormous. And let me see if I can find where I was studying at. I mean, it's just, there's so many problems in here, but you can see I practiced quite a bit with this. I was under a time crunch. I had 2 weeks to prep. So I needed anything and everything that was going to help me succeed. And this book kind of reintroduced me to all those math concepts. I spent about $5 on this book, believe it or not. That's going to be one of my bonus tips. Stick around for the end of the video and I will teach you how you can get something like this for just a few dollars. So stick around for that. But my next tip, number 3, would be the My book's gonna fall. I'm gonna set it on the floor. Back. My number 3 would be the ETS Score It Now for the writing section. It can be difficult to practice the writing section, and it's kind of intimidating, honestly, because we haven't written since, our undergraduate program, honestly, unless you're doing some sort of research with your unit and are involved with that publication, which I haven't really been since COVID happened. There weren't a lot of those opportunities anymore, especially at the facility I worked in. But this Score It Now tool, you can purchase it for $20 when you register for the exam, or even if you forget about it and want to purchase it at a later time. I don't think the price changes, but $20 will get you a credit for each of the prompts. So in the writing section, there are 2 prompts, and gosh, I can't even remember what they're officially called, but one's like you take a stand, and then the other one, you're arguing for a stand on a subject. But I really enjoyed that because it was on the online setting, like you're going to take the exam anyway, whether it's at home right now or at a testing site. You're going to be on a computer, so it has a time option, but if you don't like the time constraints, they do also offer an untimed portion. I don't suggest that because you want to practice in the constraints of how you're going to be tested. It's the best way to prepare. So I did their timed writing prompts, and I did two. They do it one after the other. You submit it, and then at the very end, they use their ETS software to analyze your writing, look for errors in grammar, spelling, punctuation, things like that. And then they give you an overall score for each prompt, and then all together. So I found that very helpful, and it was a cost-effective resource. Now, something I didn't care for about that was I scored like a 5 on those prompts during the practice. And when I took my actual GRE, I don't know why, but I scored less than that. So I didn't feel like anything really changed on how I approached writing. So maybe it was just a discrepancy in how they evaluated, but just take it with a grain of salt with how they evaluate you. Use it more as practice for the time constraint and the writing itself. I wouldn't necessarily take the score to heart so much as I did. I kind of felt let down when I got my official score back. But it is an overall good tool. And once you use the credit for the 2 prompts, you have the option to purchase additional prompts that they can evaluate your writing on. So I think each additional credit is still $20, but it gets you 2 more prompts to write on to practice in the time constraint and have them evaluate and score for you. And they have a great tool after you get the score to have it break down the areas that they kind of dinged you on. I felt that was very helpful. Not always accurate in my opinion. They said I had some spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes, but I double checked those, and like I said, just take it with a grain of salt. Now, my number 2 favorite resource for the GRE are the free practice exams that ETS offers when you sign up. So take advantage of that. When you register, check those boxes. I have like a picture of what it looks like. They're called the Power Prep, not Power Prep Plus, because that is the one that costs extra. It's like the 3rd or 4th practice exam you can take. So here you go. Power Prep, this one's the free one, and then this one below, that is the one that costs a little extra, and that's like your 3rd or 4th practice exam. So if you feel like you need the extra practice and you have the time, that may be a good option for you, but don't let those 2 free practice tests go to waste. They are long. I mean, it's a 4-hour exam, so you need to build up your stamina to take that exam. It's hard to sit through, and that test is going to prepare you in the exact way you're going to take the exam. It's online. Each section is timed specifically and the same as what you're going to experience during test day. So I highly recommend it. I had 2 weeks. I bought the 3rd practice exam. I didn't get to it, but I did use those 2 free ones, and I felt like it was invaluable practice. I used one initially to see where I was at, studied, prepped really hard, took the second one, my score didn't change, and then I studied really hard again, and I didn't get to that 3rd one before my exam because I had been working, and to me, the 4 hours to just see how I was doing wasn't necessarily a good use of my time. So, and I ended up doing about 5 points better than those practice exams gauged me at. So I think it's a great resource, and again, it's free. So Galvanize on YouTube's free. The Manhattan Prep Book, I'm going to show you how to get that for very cheap, like a few bucks. The Score It Now, $20, and then these practice exams are free. The Score It Now tool, I'll show you what that one looks like too. This is how the logo looks for the Score It Now, and you can see below there it's $20. And you can purchase every credit that you want as long as you want to keep writing. All right, now for my number one GRE resource. That would be hands down Magoosh. I think that's how you say it. I'm going to say it that way. But it can be a little pricey depending on how, like, which plan you choose, how long your access is. I knew my time of preparation was 2 weeks, so I bought 1 month of access. Probably is more cost effective to purchase longer length of access, and especially if you anticipate maybe having to retake the exam. I'll be honest, I was being cocky, thinking I'm gonna get the bare minimum I need, which was a 300, and I am only gonna take this once. That's the only option. I'm not giving myself another option to retake it. I don't have the time to. My application was already turned in. So I kind of put all my eggs in one basket, purchased 1 month. It paid off. I mean, I scored above what I needed, and their videos are ridiculously helpful. I would listen to them as I drove to and from work. That way I made the most use of the time I was actually awake and focused. And then when I got home, I would relax and do some practice problems. But their videos are very strategic. They break down, at least for the verbal section, like strategies on how to detect shifts in the sentence, so that way you know your answer has to be opposite of the word that is emphasized. Parallel sentence structure, like, it is, you don't even realize how much goes into analyzing those sentences. But I definitely think that strategy for the verbal section is responsible for my score improvement. That was the area I improved the most. And then their math videos, I did listen to quite a few of them. I didn't get through all of them, but they were definitely helpful in refreshing my memory and reducing the amount I relied on my calculator, because, like they will say, that is a trap. So if you can do mental math or make generality type decisions based on, if it works for this number, then I don't need to necessarily specifically calculate the whole problem, and it saves you time and you still get the right answer. I felt like that helped saving time and preventing me from wasting my valuable time calculating things I didn't need to calculate. I really think those videos were invaluable, and it can be hard to listen to at times because, the content is not super exciting. But if you need something to help boost your score, Magoosh is where it's at. It costs, you are going to invest in this resource, but I think it's honestly worth it. And this is what their site looks like. And let me pull up their apps too, because they have a few free apps. So if you want to test out their resources with a few of their free practice questions or practice videos before you decide you want to invest that much into the resource, maybe that's the way to go. But here are some of the resources up here. Magoosh, and then they have vocab flashcards, math. So I really think it's worth taking a look at and strongly considering. I believe the link I have that I'll list in the description below can give you like $10 off, something like that. I will put it in the description below. That way you have the link and you can use it. Now, to my bonus tips. So my bonus resource, which is super cheap because a lot of people spend so much money on prepping for the GRE exam, and it's not necessary. I think you can do it for not more than like maybe $100, $200 and still do quite well. This resource is called GregMatt, I believe. I think it's the guy's name, but it looks like this when you search for it. It's gregmatt.com. Ooh, there we go. gregmatt.com. $5 a month, and he has plenty of videos. Honestly, this was the resource I used to beef up my vocab for the verbal section. The videos are like an hour long, but he gives you these tips and tricks to remember and visualize the word in your head. The one I'm never gonna forget is like belie, and that's like to mask something or to hide behind something. And he's got like this picture of one of those wrestlers with the mask on, you know, that just always stuck with me. And anytime I saw that, I was like, I know that word. But his vocab videos were super helpful for me, and they gave me that last minute way to remember vocab for the exam. That way I could narrow down my options and increase my likelihood of having a correct answer. There it goes again. Anyway, so I think GregMatt is a great option. If you are done studying, make sure you cancel that. Otherwise, they will continue to charge you $5 a month. Not that it's a crazy amount of money, but you don't want to pay for something you're not using. Now, my final bonus tip for GRE resources would be thrift books. Thriftbooks.com, and I talked about this in a different video, but it is the best way to get resources at a discounted price if you're okay with the resource being 1 or 2 publications older than the most current released version. So that doesn't bother me. I don't feel like these like board or certification type exams really change all that much. So for me, investing $5 for every resource and having more than not enough to study from, that was the better way for me to go. And if you know me personally, I am a resource junkie. Like, you can look at my bookshelves and I have just books and books and books. Like, as soon as I found out I was in nursing school, I went on thrift books and just kind of like bought everything I could that was available. It's bad. I have a bad habit with resources. It's not a good thing sometimes. But I got all 3 of these ETS books, which I didn't end up using. If I had more time, I would have. I bet you I would have. But with the 2-week time constraint, I just didn't have time to sit there and read. I needed audio, which is why I settled with Magoosh and the GregMatt. Those were ways for me to learn in the most time-effective way for me. But ETS has resource books as well. There's a general test book, and this is a couple of publications old, but they help you like approach questions. There's practice questions. This is like $5 on thrift books. This is a verbal reasoning practice book. I did actually use this a little bit in the beginning of studying, and then for the first day or 2 I was using this, I realized I need extra help, and that's why I went with Magoosh, because I knew within the time frame I had, this wasn't going to help me enough to get my score up. But that book is also like $5 on thrift books. It's ridiculous. I mean, you can find anything. Nursing books. There were some old versions of Guyton and Hall's Anatomy and Physiology that I snatched up that were like maybe $10, I think, compared to 90 or 100 or more. It's just a really big price difference. And if that's not that big of a deal to you, if you're just looking for those extra resources that aren't required by like a curriculum, or if you're investing in GRE resources out of your own pocket like I was, then you need all the financial help you can get. You need these tips and tricks to save money and you know, take the exam once, invest in that price, and then if you don't get the score you need, then look at those more pricey ways to prepare for the GRE exam. I don't recommend necessarily getting a personal tutor until you know how you've done, you have a baseline, and know that it's worth it for you to invest all that money in. I mean, people pay thousands of dollars for personal tutors. I wasn't about to drop that on GRE prep. Now, there's another like general test book too that this was like $5. I'm telling you, thrift books is where it's at. That Manhattan 5-pound book that I just set on the floor earlier, that's also on there. That's where I got that book, and it's, I mean, you can even see. Look at this. Woo. Thrift books. Everyone has that barcode on it. It's so worth it. You know, those are my best resources for this exam from my personal experience. I didn't have to retake it. I didn't have to invest in the additional instruction and personalized teaching. So if you need that, I'm probably not your best resource for those resources, but I can at least tell you how to prepare for it as cheaply as possible. But you know, if you liked this video, if you thought it was helpful, then like the video, subscribe. I'm going to be giving more information like this. I plan on doing a video on GRE tips and tricks that might be helpful for you, because you don't want to have to take this exam again. Believe me, it is rough. So until next week, I do post once a week. I will see you then. Have a great week. Study Nurse signing out.